Grail Industries makes its move against Jesse. Cassidy and Denis enter a new phase in their relationship, and Tulip continues to spiral out of control. It's going to be a long night on this week's episode of Preacher, Season 2, Episode 9, Puzzle Piece. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of Preacher. So yes, of course, lots of spoilers ahead. Alright, fun episode tonight. Really, we're kicking the story forward more. Really getting that intersection with Grail now, where we're getting those interactions. Some nice insights on Featherstone, and of course, more on Herr Starr. But let's dive into that big opening sequence, a really cool one with the assault on, the Grail Industries assault on the apartment. Now, I'm a big gamer. I've been playing for years, since way back when. And so just seeing that opening bit coming from a first-person shooter perspective, especially with the night vision and everything and the cloistered sound, was really cool. And I think they really carried it forward wonderfully. That darkness certainly adding a level of tension along with the heavy breathing, because of course they've got the earmuffs on, which was smart. I loved seeing that Grail Industries being smart. They know Jesse could use the word, so keep them from doing it. It was really beautifully done and adds a nice dynamic to things. But of course, it goes horribly wrong. I love the attack by Cass as they go by, just out from the ceiling and then back and forth, and then seeing the changes of perspective and Cassidy shot and coming in, and then their assault, and then the last guy going out. The nice redirect with a shot of Denis. We'll dive into that in a minute. And then, of course, encountering Jesse. So sure, they've got earmuffs on, but Jesse still a badass fighter. And that was really well done. Again, chaotic, kinetic, really getting to see the intensity there. It was fun to see. I thought it was a great, again, the whole sequence is done, really sold that first person perspective, which is kind of often difficult to do. And then of course the quick turnaround as soon as he got the earmuffs off ended it. Definitely was surprised with the whole kill your friends line. We know Jesse's a badass. We know that certainly he is not afraid to cross those lines. He is innately a good guy. And of course, they've been attacking him, so it's only self-defense, especially as they're tearing Cassidy apart on the kitchen floor right there. But still a little bit surprising, a little bit harsh, and unfortunately really kind of kicks him in the butt, because with the last guy alive there, we get our final reveal of Denis, that in fact, he was turned by Cassidy at the end of last episode. So confirmation right there, and then sort of really sets the whole stage for the rest of the episode and the big paranoid reaction that Jesse has, which was beautifully done. Now that big scene with that big reveal of Denis explains a lot of the earlier tension we had in the beginning there, of course. Cassidy not very happy with Jesse, and especially when he uses the word on Tulip, again, in an understandable so, that sort of amplifies it right there. Because when Cassidy did ask Jesse for help, and he asked, even implied about the word, again, I don't know how that would have necessarily helped, Jesse's response was, we should save it, it should be for important things. So not only when he just uses it to put Tulip to sleep, it's understandable, like he told her later on, he didn't know what else to do and she'd been up for so long. That's one thing, but his willingness to do it for his own needs and purposes versus when requested by Cassidy, I think that was starting all that strong tension between them in the beginning of the scene. And certainly as Cassidy has his feelings for Tulip and has worry for her, that's exactly where Jesse is going to push back with the whole I got it, we got it type of thing. I do love they sort of started sorting that out throughout the rest of the episode, and kind of seemed to have come to terms with that little discussion later when Cass asked him, I didn't know how you would react to the whole Denis thing. But of course, Jesse is trying to be supportive. So I like the fact that, yes, while they have tension, they are certainly they're certainly willing to look forward. And in fact, I think there's a certain character trait the two of them might share, and that kind of can be brought out when we look further on to what's going on with Denis. The relationship between Denis and Cass now kind of having an interesting shift. Denis much more appreciative in the scene afterwards where Cass is kind of healing. It was interesting to see Denis taking care of Cass. Obviously, Cassidy was feeding the blood initially to Denis to try and help him recover from his previous human illness, and now the tables are sort of reversed as Denis is helping Cassidy, recover from his attack. And we get a really interesting insight there. One, we have Cass sort of being, in a way, a father here, teaching him about the son. You've got to be careful, seeing where he can start to introduce Cassidy into this new lifestyle, kind of be that second parenting option or opportunity for Cassidy. And yes, that would be appealing for him. But we do have those dark insights, especially here and then later on in the episode, of what the downsides are going to be. Because if you remember the phone call when he end of the last episode when he was talking with Seamus, there was a specific question of what is his temperament? How well do you know him? And I think that is how much self-control is he going to have. Because while Cassidy is warning Denis, don't drink the blood too fast, it's just for healing and for no other reason, Denis is gulping that down. You can see where he is relishing in this new experience, and that continues throughout the whole episode where he's dancing and smiling, and later on the music has come on and he's sort of ignoring everyone else and doing his own thing. He has this level of self-indulgence. Now, so does Cassidy, and we don't really know how much they know of each other throughout it. Certainly we don't know anything. So is Denis, much like Cassidy in that sense, is weak and prone to self-indulgence? Because maybe, as weak as Cassidy seems, there is a certain strength in him of not crossing a line. That's the hint that we get into this, when he says, do it for this reason and for no other reason. To me, that is a hint of there are limitations that you have to place on yourself being a vampire to be a good one. Because otherwise, you could go insane with bloodlust and all this crazy stuff. You could see where the dark side of this could go. So that may end up being kind of the rough thing. And it'd be interesting to see Cassidy as somebody who is in some ways so weak, willing, prone to self-indulgence and stuff, still having a line that he won't cross. And that's what I'm saying. There might be a certain similarity between him and Jesse. Jesse might be very self-indulgent with the voice and learns that there are certain lines that he can't cross with it, because he certainly goes over the top throughout the episode tonight. So it's just kind of interesting to see Cassidy from this perspective. As weak as he might be much stronger than we think to resist these other vampiric indulgences. And the downside of that means is that if Denis can't have that, doesn't have that control, could possibly go out of control, then maybe Cassidy is going to have switched from the unfortunate instance of seeing his son die to maybe having to be the one that kills him to stop it. Now, the failure of the Grail assault team does lead to a very rough encounter between Featherstone Hoover and Herr Starr, which is easily my scene of the week. Was going to be the opening first-person shooter shot because that was so beautifully well done. And all I was waiting for, if nothing else better happens, and then this scene did. Beautiful. I mean, just Featherstone is a force to be reckoned with. It was in her commitment to the cause. This was just all beautifully done. We're seeing the difference between her and Hoover too, who, yes, is committed to the cause, but maybe not quite so much. Certainly reflected later on at the end when we have the potential death by b.r.a.d. Featherstone would be really happy to potentially go out then, but not Hoover quite so much. But this scene was just perfectly done because they're all both resigned that they're going to be dead. They already have the plastic laid out. And that Herr Starr is not even pausing for the moment to pull out the gun and shoot him. There was such a psychotic commitment to this, we're dying for our cause thing. And then, first off, we have Featherstone's, when they asked who is it first, and Hoover's like, me, because they're supposed to both say me, and she goes, him. much to Hoover's surprise. And then when the gun doesn't work, she's offering to fix it. And throughout the whole discussion, which was beautifully done, because she's doing her work, she's showing her commitment, and yet still inquiring about the best way to get the mission done. Impressing a guy like Herr Starr, I would imagine. And the whole time we have Hoover standing in the back, just sweating bullets, just waiting like, oh my God, is she going to fix this? Is it going to be done? I'm about to die in a minute. Is she going to save us? What's going to happen? It was funny and tense. And then when he talks about the rape fantasy, when she suggests b.r.a.d, and then he talks about the rape fantasy, and she immediately switches gears and is like, oh, okay, so do you want schoolgirl uniform? I can switch out right there. Immediately diving back in. It was just as crazy as everybody is and as twisted as Herr Starr. Her ability is certainly just stay right with it no matter what gears are going on, to keep committed to it, and then continuing throughout the episode. It was beautiful. And then even hands back the gun, and then even the last ending line of like, I'm going to leave the plastic down in case you fail. It was just awesome. We get that twisted view into Herr Starr, who is definitely a twisted guy. We're seeing more into Featherstone, who not only is a super quick, fast change artist, but wholly committed to the cause, mind, body, and soul, and just an amazing scene showing some great character bits, really giving us insight into everyone, and just so twisted and wrong, but perfectly done. It was I couldn't say anything more about it. And many more insights into Herr Starr, who is just such a beautifully twisted individual. Grail Industries has a marvelous ability to choose some very twisted, dark, and yet committed individuals. Certainly not surprising that he's a bit of a misogynist as well as a sexual deviant, or sexually inquisitive, perhaps, depends on your definition. But the whole, a woman listens to a man and you call it a superpower, these are character-defining moments right here. But we get to see into this whole date, which, yes, introduces the whole idea of the missing puzzle piece in a very G-rated story that he twists around to R and X-rated pretty quick. I don't know what his plan was with the butter and how long she could hold her breath. I don't think it was ultimately very important. Certainly a sign that she is more than willing on this first date and introduction to drop her shirt and do everything that he commands. I mean, she says that he is super powerful. And yes, his position of being, I'm involved in the most powerful country on the planet with all these people who get me, and yet there is something missing in my heart. Oh, poor Herr Starr. Hope he finds it, which of course he does, or seems to. But it was just hilarious. Even the whole push of the rape fantasy and the no means yes, the back and forth that we have with Featherstone in there. There's that commitment to whatever these people want is all okay in service to the mission. Loved the turnaround, or was it at the end there when the four guys show up? It was perfectly done. You can see the disappointment. It's like, no, it's not supposed to be. And of course, the insistence of the no means yes is just going to reinforce this. Now, I have to say, just from seeing Herr Starr, I wouldn't think that this would be necessarily a new experience for him. And yet, with the whole puzzle piece statement, there is sort of a two-way of looking at that. Is the missing puzzle piece the fact that he has found a new sexual experience that he likes? Or is it the realization of Jesse Custer, considering that he's seeing that as he's bouncing back and forth again in beautiful camera work? And we'll put the group sex aside for a moment and just talk about the whole Jesse thing, because we had that scene before where he's playing with the whole cat thing, why that keeps popping up. No, nobody likes cats. I kid. But as he's doing that, and that brings up the video of the discussion between Jesse and Cassidy in the very beginning, where he's talking about the need for God. Now, the Grail is here in order to support the belief in God and to get rid of, the Samson unit is to get rid of distractions from that singular goal, from that word. Jesse isn't actually against God. In fact, he is very supportive of God. He's trying to find God, and he does express there to Cassidy what a horrible thing, how important God is, and that you need that for structure. Something that's very important to Herr Starr. So I think part of that realization, if we're going to go in that direction, is that Jesse isn't necessarily an enemy. He's actually working for the same course that the Grail is, or seems to, or could work in the same direction. They're not necessarily against each other. And I think that there is a value that Herr Starr then sort of realizes. One, if Jesse is looking for God and God is missing, can thus Herr Starr meet God? Maybe he's got some questions. But ultimately, again, it still is reinforcing in many ways the mission that the Grail is for. So because they're not necessarily enemies, they potentially can work forward to the same goal. That, of course, is not going to work out totally right, but at least it keeps them from being adversaries for the moment. And Tulip, of course, continued to spiral out from the whole Saint encounter, making some cash out of it, apparently, but some heavy bruising too. She hasn't been sleeping. There's got to be a lot of drugs going through her system in order to keep that from happening, going back and forth, and all the adrenaline from being shot at. Yeah, she's going to fall apart in a minute. So, of course, Jesse is going to use the voice on her to try and get her to sleep. I know how upset that she was and told him never to do it again. Plus, we had the whole thing back at her husband's place when Jesse kind of went a little bit nuts and pushed her out there. So this is kind of twice that Jesse has used the voice on her after she said not to. So yeah, understand her being upset. But she is spiraling out. And I did love that scene between Jesse and Tulip, where he is trying to explain and trying to connect and try and be supportive of what you can do. Sure, maybe the whole you get better when we fight, I wouldn't say necessarily that would be the best advice in most circumstances, but for Tulip, yeah, maybe that is. I can imagine the shock of her opened up and see, because after she passes out there, gets put to sleep, but she wakes up with all the bodies and everything and the police running around inside the apartment. I think they played off that shock nice. When she was looking for a gun, though, it did give me a little concern, because we did see her disturbing the tiles there in the bathroom floor, under which that's where Jesse hid the Saint's guns that can kill anyone or anything. I was really concerned that those might pop up. And we're getting some foreshadowing, because we know this is going to come back up. Now, this was just sort of a random thought. If she does end up recovering them and recognizing them, one, that could be heavily shocking for someone spiraling out like she is. On the other hand, it is something that she could potentially use against the Saint to stop him. You can kill the Saint with his guns. But as nothing ever works out well, she might get that idea, go back, try and release the Saint, and then not be able to do it, and then he gets back and he's loose, and it could all get worse from there. So, though that image of the tiles going out, that's going to play forward. This is not the last that we have seen of those guns. But luckily, at least, she doesn't find those. She just borrows the ones from Featherstone next door. You know, this is just, their back and forth is going to end badly sooner or later. And then, of course, we have the whole police action going on, which I have to say I actually loved. I liked the fact that Jesse was taking a really proactive attack and trying to really get to the bottom of things. Obviously, the DVD didn't work out. YouTube, maybe not the best place to look for sightings of God, except in toast. So this idea, after the attack on Grail, I love the fact that he was doing proactively, getting support, trying to get the mess all cleaned up, trying to get to the bottom and find a way to get some answers. Definitely by using a little liberal use of the word, which I think was, part of things that was upsetting Cass so much, like I had mentioned before. And really, just real quick, I think that was because Cassidy felt forced to change Denis. I think because Jesse wasn't really reacting with any help. I don't know what he wanted the word to do, but even reaching out to Seamus, the discussion with Tulip, I don't think he felt there was any answers and he wasn't getting cooperation. So I think his initial upset with Jesse is because he felt forced to turn Denis as just the only option that he had, safe of letting him die. But we've already talked about them, and they certainly seem to have sort of made up afterwards. But I did like this whole idea of building up a defensive perimeter to prepare for the Grail. And as for their assault, or the second assault, b.r.a.d, I loved how they did all of the redirects. I mean, first of all, when you have the cleaners show up, very quiet with the case, and the camera is all mysteriously viewing on him and not really seeing the face or anything, of course we start to think that that's him. And I was like, the police are horrible, because they were just letting the guy walk in. And certainly as he's cleaning up, everything is looking very suspicious, which unfortunately Tulip saw also, since there was nobody hiding in the vent. Again, she's starting to lose it. And unfortunately for him. But then we have the second one. You gotta think, oh no, b.r.a.d is the giant half-naked guy with the scary costume mask on, taking a leak behind the police car. But no, and I was waiting for him to go nuts and start throwing police guys around. But no, that just ends up being some drunk guy. No, ends up being a Joan. Battle-ready, radio-controlled assault drone. You don't really need the radio-controlled part, I don't think. You could still have the battle-ready b.r. aerial drone. Yeah, aerial drone, which is in the air. Should be assault there anyway. A drone is an aerial. Anyway, a lot of repetition in that. I think it could have been a slightly shorter name, but irrelevant in its approach. Was just nice surprise. Certainly not something that a gun is going to defend against. And ends up being the death of Harry Connick Jr., which is lovely. First they killed off Tom Cruise last season. Now they killed off Harry Connick Jr. I think the producers are using the show in order to make a statement against artists they don't necessarily like, or are friends with and are making them laugh their asses off that they get killed on a show. It's one or the other. Oh, and the fact that afterwards we jump forward to the 1 week later and you get the beautiful shot that I think they've been up this entire week, certainly from Jesse's face with the whole police before finally letting him go. It was a perfect topper because, yeah, you didn't know anything about b.r.a.d's assault. You wouldn't think that night would have been the end of it. Of course he would have stayed crazy and just focused on it. The only one little comment that I do have is very funny that with Featherstone and Hoover 4 doors down and all of the police searching and looking around everywhere, they weren't discovered. Yes, Featherstone's a master change artist, but still, I thought that was just hilarious that they're still in the apartment a couple doors down while they're surrounded by police that are there to protect them against people like Featherstone and Hoover. All right, well, I think that actually pretty much covers everything. Now, next week, we are going to have not only an interesting teaming up between Herr Starr and Jesse on the search for God, but a little bit more of Denis and Cassidy. And yeah, it didn't look like Denis is doing much self-control. So that can get pretty dark pretty fast. And hopefully Tulip's going to find something to snap her out of this. Hopefully it's not going to be trying to find those guns and go after the Saint, because that would not end well. Anyway, we'll have to wait and find out. So, if you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, throw those down in the section below. Now, you can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes. And if you're not a subscriber, please join us. It's quick, it's easy. All you gotta do, hit my face right there, and then you'll catch this, the rest of Game of Thrones, plus our big fall review season coming up. So, and I'll throw up our latest Game of Thrones review right there. You can check that out. All right, so that's it for me. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.